Tons of big news in wrestling, as always. Timestamps in the description down below. We're going to kick things off with the Young Bucks. Guys, this is very, very interesting to me. So, according to Dave Meltzer in the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter, Meltzer had reported that none of the men that have been suspended have heard any updates whatsoever from AEW. In fact, he says regarding the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, they hadn't heard anything from the company for at least as of a few days ago. And basically, AEW hasn't addressed anything of the matter. So, when it comes to the suspension of the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, really what it's coming down to is what I've said previously, which is the internal investigation. And now there appears to be something else that could be holding them back from returning, and nobody knows exactly what that is. Obviously, we know CM Punk is injured. We all saw the photo of him publicly wearing that arm brace. So now really what it comes down to is what the hell is happening in AEW? Is there going to be a return for these guys? What is this investigation going to conclude with when you're looking at the facts? And also, I think one of the things that a lot of people need to pay attention to here really is what is AEW going to do when they do come back? Because again, you got to remember that AEW hasn't publicly commented on this suspension other than the fact that they've been suspended. So there's been no dialogue whatsoever between Tony Khan and the media in regards to what this investigation looks like. What are some possible implications from the investigation? So these are all things that people need to keep in mind as we move forward within time. Obviously, the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, whether they keep their EVP titles or not, that's something that a lot of people are wondering. A lot of people are curious to see what's going to happen here. I'm very intrigued to see, but it's going to be interesting. Guys, we got to talk about Bandito. No clarification as to whether or not Bandito has signed with AEW, but we do know, according to Dave Meltzer, that Bandito was offered a full-time contract with AEW. Obviously, the clip of Tony Khan hugging Bandito like a fanboy, it's everywhere on social media. Honestly, I love it. Tony Khan is such a fan of these things. Bandito and Chris Jericho had an absolutely awesome match on AEW Dynamite. And you know what? I'm just going to say it. The fact that Bandito has not been signed is criminally ridiculous. It is so ridiculous. The fact that we haven't seen him, we haven't seen him whatsoever get signed to Impact, AEW. Like, what the hell is happening here? So we don't know if Bandito's going to sign with AEW. Now, one thing I do want to point out, too, is we don't know if there's any level of interest from WWE, but I also want to point out, too, if Bandito were to sign with AEW, they need to do it. Like, they need to go all in with Bandito. And I'm not saying for ROH, I'm saying for AEW. AEW has had a lot of signings in the past 2 years, and there's been this issue where people sign, they get that massive pop, and then they kind of go into obscurity. It's an issue. It's a concern. A lot of people are pointing it out. I think deep down inside, Tony Khan knows this is an issue that he has. Bandito is fantastic at performing inside that wrestling ring. If you are going to sign this man, and he does accept that agreement, you need to bring him in full-time, ready to go, give him a big push, treat him like a big deal. This guy has a lot of potential in the world of wrestling in America. So what would be the reason to not do so? It's just something I don't understand. Obviously, I really like the idea of Bandito being on TV. I thought his match with Jericho was great. I think there's a lot of great things you can do with him. So really, it's just up to Tony Khan, and at this point, it's up to Bandito as to whether or not he plans on signing. I also want to make it very clear, there's no details on how much he's been offered or anything like that, but right now, it seems like most AEW agreements are being offered for about 3 years. That's at least what we've learned from Saraya and other AEW signings. I want to turn our attention to the White Rabbit. AEW doesn't have a storyline like this, but WWE, they know the hardcore audience is paying attention, and it's very interesting. Now, Fightful Select is reporting that there is belief in the WWE that the White Rabbit is for Bray Wyatt. Obviously, we have been talking about that for a while, but also the belief is that the reveal will happen at Extreme Rules, which is something else that we have been talking about for a while. WWE is obviously teasing the White Rabbit for a good reason. This is something that a lot of hardcore fans are really intrigued by. Even if it's Bray Wyatt, I think people would be excited for that. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about Bray Wyatt and what WWE can do with him going forward. I think WWE is in a very, very good spot here. They have something happening right now with the Bloodline, which is a major storyline regarding the World Championship. I've always been under the belief that Bray Wyatt does not need to hold a world title. So if Bray Wyatt joins the WWE again, which at this point it's pretty much, we all know it's happening. What are you going to do with Bray Wyatt? And I think the best thing is when you are a character-centric performer like Bray Wyatt is, I think you could just do a lot of things, really. From week to week, I think there's a lot you can do without necessarily having to, win a championship. And I know maybe it's not the most popular opinion, but Bray Wyatt striking at Extreme Rules would be a great idea, in my opinion, because it's going to set the precedence that even though the World Championship is not being defended on a premium live event, it still is a big deal, and I think that is what WWE needs to do. They need to make their pay-per-views feel like a big deal, even when the World Championship isn't on there. I'm actually really excited for Extreme Rules. I think this is probably going to be one of the best pay-per-views that WWE has all year, which is really crazy because I said the same thing about Clash at the Castle, and I thought that was a really, really strong pay-per-view. So we'll see what happens, but Bray Wyatt at Extreme Rules will be awesome. It's something I'm super excited about. What do you guys think? And for our final story of the day, guys, we got to talk about this. The Good Brothers are interested. There's a lot of talk here about the Good Brothers coming back to WWE. Now, for those who don't remember, during the past few months, there was some talk about WWE being in talks with a top tag team that was rumored to be the Good Brothers. Carl Anderson was speaking with Sports Illustrated, and he said that he and Gallows have a verbal agreement with New Japan Pro Wrestling, but they aren't going to rule out a possible WWE return in the future. He says, just like you said, never say never. We've got verbally agreed upon dates with New Japan Pro Wrestling for an extended period of time, but there's such a build-in story with the Bullet Club that we never got to finish the story in WWE with AJ Styles or even Finn. There's a lot of things that have happened in the business, so you can never say never. Anytime we can work with brothers like AJ and Finn, we are going to listen to that. Now, I also want to point out Finn Balor has publicly talked about the Good Brothers coming to WWE and how he believes that they will. I also want to point out that WWE is slated to have a very massive push for Finn Balor. We have been talking about that for weeks on this channel. Even talks about him returning to the Demon character. Now, all of a sudden, WrestleVotes is coming out saying the same thing, that WWE has very, very big plans for Finn Balor. I think the idea of Finn Balor turning on the Judgment Day, bringing in the Good Brothers, could be a really great thing for WWE. And I think that's actually what's going to happen. I don't know how soon it would be. Obviously, WWE has this I Quit match between Edge and Finn Balor, but I'm all about this, guys. I'm super excited about it. And I think Finn Balor needs to lose to Edge, right? If you look at it from the perspective of wins and losses, Finn Balor needs to find a way out of the Judgment Day. He can lose, he can quit, and when he quits, he ends up turning on the Judgment Day, and therein comes Carl Anderson and, of course, Gallows. So, yeah, very interesting stuff. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.